Alright, back with the Outcast 4S. I've got the front diff out. I want to show you guys how to put one of these hot racing diffs together. Took me a lot of time yesterday to figure it all out. I truly hate working on diffs. Differentials have always been horrible to me just because they're so messy. But I got a few parts. Here's the diff. It's in this little carrier. I am going to replace the carrier. Here is the differential part number, so you guys can see it's the same front and rear. So I'm going to lay out all the parts. And get to assembling this diff. So there's our diff gear. And then there's 4 bolts with that. And then here's our pinion gear for the diff. And then there's a bag of goodies right here. And this bag has the seal and has some pins. And that's what took me a little while, what was going on with these 2 pins and these 2 spacers. They don't show you where they go. So I'm going to show you that. And then here's the diff cup. There's the part number for the diff cup. I have showed this before. And this will work on the 3S and 4S. And it also gives you bolts, but they're the same bolts up there. So you get 2 sets of bolts. And then here's our diff holder. And there's the part number for that. And that works for the 4S Creighton, the Outcast, and the 3S, the Sentin, and the Granite, that kind of stuff. And then they give you 2 bolts for this. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this one apart, which is just 2 bolts. Make sure you have Loctite on hand and diff fluid, because I have noticed in doing the other one there wasn't much diff fluid in the other one. And then you want to make note of which half goes on which half. So I'm going to make note that the shaft is facing towards me. This is going to be my right and this is going to be my left. I'm going to lay everything out that way. I know the gear is on my right side, which is going to be the hot racing side. The other side is different. And it sits in this channel only one way. And then there's a bearing on each side, and the gear side there's a shim. So on the side with the gear, there should be a shim on that side. So the bearing stayed in that side. I'm just prying up here a little bit. That came out. The bearing did not come out with it, and that's what happened on the other one. There's my diff that has 2 bearings. There is no shim on that. At least there wasn't on the rear. I'll check this one. But this side has a shim. So this bearing and then this shim. And that's going to push her into this pinion. So I'm going to make note also, this is dirty on one half and clean, but I am going to clean it up and put some, they are shielded bearings, they're not rubber sealed, so I'll go ahead and lube them up. So that they can soak in. While I'm doing this, make sure you have grease on hand. An all-purpose grease would be fine. So that's going to go into here. And then this shim is going to go on top of it. So this is going to get this gasket, which is going to go right in here. It's a nice fit for the rubber gasket. And then let me pop open this diff. This hardware is not going to be used. And then I'm going to push down on this while cracking this open. I'm doing that to break the gasket free so the gasket doesn't tear. Not like it really matters, but if you're going to reuse the diff, you're going to see, pins are coming out. This is what happened last time. So this pin, I'm going to take it out of here and stick it back in here where it belongs. So that's how the diff looks. Cracked open, you see all the gears. So we're going to transfer this stuff, but it's going to be transferred back because this diff cup is now going to sit this way. So this is our lid. So all we're going to do is take everything in here, and we're basically going to flip it upside down and put everything in here. Now, noting that these ones right here, the bottom gears, these pins are going to be replaced. They're going to be replaced with these pins, one pin and one spacer. And then one pin and one spacer for the other short gear. And I call it a short gear, but it's the short, the pin that's farther down, because we want this to come up higher. We want this to come up higher so that it'll hit the lid, and the lid will secure everything. And then this space in between here, right in between here, that space is going to get the aluminum spacer so that it keeps that gear pressed down into the new diff cup. So, first thing I'm going to do is remove these top ones. Noting these are my bottom ones. That's a bottom one. That's a bottom one. So there should be a washer with this, a rubber O-ring. This O-ring is going to go with this. In there, and this is going to sit in there. Remember, we're doing it in reverse. So this is the gear on the gear side now. And that does have a shim on it. And then there should be a rubber O-ring with that one as well. And that's going to go on this one. And there is a shim on the bottom of that gear. And that's going to go on the lid side now. So here's our bottom gears. Which are going to get replaced out with these. They're just a little longer. These pins are a little longer so that they'll hit the top. And they go in the one farthest away. And then one aluminum spacer will go with that, because we're going to want to keep that pushed down. And we're going to repeat for the other one. God, I hate grease. And then it's going to be the one farthest down. And then that's going to get an aluminum spacer. And then these will be on the, there's a higher spot that these go into. And that's how it should look. You see where the spacers are now? So what we did was this bottom gear, the one that's deepest in it, went in the deepest hole, got a longer pin, and then got this spacer so that it puts pressure on this gear, and this gear can't walk up or walk around on that long pin. That's what I found on doing the rear diff. And this took me, I took this thing apart 2 or 3 times to figure all this out. Basically, you want this pin, this pin, this pin, and this pin all to be the same height. There we go. And then make sure that when you got this in and the two centers meet each other, that everything spins freely. All right. We've already got our O-ring on it. So now what I'm going to do, now that I know this system is working, I'm going to put my diff fluid in it. Now I used 15K on the back. So I'm going to use 15 on the front. It's a little thin, but I'm not trying to lock up the diffs on this one. I don't want to break axles. I am already overpowering the diff as it is, or the RC. I don't need to be breaking anything. So if power transfers to one wheel and not the other, and then the other, I'm good with that, because I am going to be mashing with this. First, I'm going to try to do some speed runs with it, just to see where I'm at. And then I'm filling the diff all the way up, trying to get all the little nooks and crannies. And we're going to let this thing settle, and then I'm going to top it off. So I'm going to use this to hold my diff up. And it sucks because a little diff fluid on my table. God, I hate this diff fluid. And that's it. Very simple. Now this one. Alright, I got the bearings switched over. So I'm going to start getting this thing assembled. Just tightening it down evenly, making sure that it still moves. Crisscross your pattern. So that you can get this thing snug down evenly. Making sure that your diff is still free and clear. And that's it. I'm going to go ahead, wipe off the excess Loctite that I have on the bolts. I'm going to let this sit. Then I'm going to double check those bolts to make sure that they didn't stretch or it didn't settle. Close up my Loctite, and that's it. That's how you build one of these diffs. There is a slot for both bearings, so make sure that they're lined up, and then put your other half on. Making sure everything lines up. Get some Loctite on these threads. Anytime you're going into aluminum, definitely want to Loctite it, or they will back out. And if this diff locks up while you're running it, chances are you're definitely going to break something. Double check these. That's it. And then the diff will only sit into this thing one way, which is shaft forward and the HR facing me. Now I'm going to go ahead and put grease in here. I'm also going to put this on a drill and spin this just to make sure everything's okay before I close everything up. Alright, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next video.